Hello, everyone. I do believe we are live. Just making sure here. Yes, we are live. What's up, everybody? It's another stream, another day, another stream. Uh, we're trying to stream to kind of make up for lost time. We missed a lot of streams. We also missed a lot of videos. Um, I should have a video coming out, if not today, then tomorrow for the Atlas Geo. So if you've been waiting on that review, it is phenomenal. The Atlas Geo is just phenomenal. So that should be your first part of the review. What's up, Northern Surge? What's up, Mary? So the idea here is we are trying to, make up for lost time with some of these streams because, the ability to pop out a quality video is not the same as the ability to stream and just, give you guys content and ability to, chat and talk about, Star Citizen things. So yeah, we will have the Geo video coming out. We still will be working on that series. So expect probably tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then the following day there should be 2 videos coming out, and we'll ramp it up to end out the month. So we should have a video every single day starting tomorrow. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 videos at least by the end of the month, just to end the month strong because we owe you guys. We owe you guys some video content. What's up, Matthew Ward? Um, Blue 4, I definitely saw. What's up, Samortis? I definitely saw your message the other day. My apologies, I forgot to actually respond to it. I think I didn't see it until super late. But definitely agree with you. From my understanding of the Geo so far is that the Geo is going to be a major contestant to the Rock, as in there's still some differences there, but that is, in my review, that is going to be one of the primary things that I go over. How the Geo in a lot of ways can replace the Rock. Not in every way, but I definitely think it makes the Rock DS the more important vehicle for Star Citizen, but obviously with the fixes that the Rock DS needs, because the Rock DS is too big. That's the biggest problem with it. Also, I think we could, work on the separation of duties there. But yeah, you'll see that in my review. I just wanted to kind of give a kind of update on that. Yeah, 2 days in a row. That's what we're doing. We're trying to get back to it. We're trying to get back to the content. So before we make sure, if you have questions, make sure you leave those in the comments. But let's see if there was any news today that we missed, and then we will get back to those questions. So drop your questions. We'll give some people some time to trickle in, because most people are probably not prepared for me to have 2 days in a row of streaming. But we're gonna try to stream a lot, because again, we got to make up for lost time here. Let's see what we got. All right. Oh, they answered? Yes, they did. So they responded to my thing basically saying it was nullified. It takes 5 business days to get your money back. So, all right, cool. Got it. That means if I did purchase that stuff, I'd have to buy it with cash, which means I just will not get those things because I'm not going to spend the money that I already have in the game. I'm not going to spend extra. Even though it's like $11, I'm not doing it. So, yeah, I guess I just will keep my money. I kind of wanted the Atlas skin, but it's not so amazing of a skin that if I don't have it, I'll go crazy. So I think I'll be all right. But yeah, gotta spend the in-game money. I've already given this game way too much money, so yeah. Hold on. Let me pull up the. Let me pull up the dev tracker and com links. Okay. We're at Wave 2 PTU. I already talked about that. FPS animations, no ISC this week. Roadmap roundup. All right. We got the roadmap roundup. That seems like the only thing here. So we can go over that. All right, let's do this. I will get to your questions right after we go over the roadmap roundup. So keep dropping the questions. Even if you're dropping multiple questions, that's all good. Drop as many questions as you got. Fill it up. We got 2 hours, so no limits. All right, let's make this bigger for everybody. All right. For those who haven't seen this, this should be a pretty short. You can already tell this is a pretty short one here. So, Space Combat Mission Patrol, adding a patrol mission that takes the player through a series of patrol points. At each waypoint, players can run into a variety of objectives and encounters. Space Combat Mission Ambush, adding an ambush mission that takes players to set up a trap in an asteroid cluster and ambush high-value target ships as they pass by. Space Combat Mission UEE Training Missions, adding a suite of UEE training missions that teach players about various ship combat scenarios, introducing new challenges as the player progresses. And new hairstyles, adding 3 additional hairstyles with update 4.1.0. Hair guy, I'm still waiting on my hair to get into the game. I know you have a different objective right now, but still, I want that hair in that game. New hairstyles, again, adding 4 additional hairstyles with 4.1.1. So that's it. That's it. That's your whole progress tracker. That's the most we have from yesterday. Not a whole lot there. So it is what it is. This is the build up to Invictus. So this is normally a very light news cycle. So we won't really get news until maybe the week before Invictus. So if you are just joining the Star Citizen community, then you probably wouldn't know that. What's up, Risto? What's up, Disarray? So Northern Tech Hermit, what's up? So again, for folks who don't know, when you are waiting for a major event for Star Citizen, normally 2 weeks to a month before that major event, there's no other major news. And there's only, I mean, if we're being honest, I actually tend to treat the end of January, beginning of February as like a major event, even though I know that's not kind of like the way people look at it. But if you think about it, we have, here, I could just do this. So I always bring this page up when I talk about events. All right, so this one, if you look at the events, this one goes all the way down, right? So we have Red Festival and Koramore. So Red Festival is like end of January and Koramore is like beginning of February to mid-February. So the reason I count this as like a major time, because Red Festival comes with like events and ship sales and stuff like that. Koramore comes with events and ship sales and stuff like that. And then like Stella Fortuna, we get a little bit of a break and then we go into Stella Fortuna, but I don't really count Stella Fortuna as like a major event. Triggerfish, I don't really count as a major event. But Invictus, so I would say we have end of January to middle of February as a major event, if you count those things together. And then we have Invictus, which is 2 weeks. This says May 17th. I don't know if this was from last year or if this is for this year. I don't know if they've announced the dates. But if that is the case, then if this would be mid-May to end of May, right? Alien Week isn't normally a big deal. Foundation Festival isn't really a big deal. Now, Ship Showdown itself is a big deal, but it's not a major event. Pirate Week isn't normally a big deal. Day of the Var isn't normally a big deal. And then we get CitizenCon, and then we get IAE. So if you count Luminalia, I don't think things really get crazy for Luminalia. But I would say, though, I count there as like 3 major event times during, well, 4. So you got CitizenCon, IAE, Invictus, and I would say that end of January to mid-February, Coromor and Red Festival time. And in between those 4 periods of time, I'd say you get about a month of like not a whole lot happening, which, and sometimes even 2 months of not a whole lot happening, because IAE and CitizenCon are normally, CitizenCon is October, and then IAE is the very next month, so you don't get a whole lot of time in between those two. So that's why you have some other times where it's like 2 months of not really hearing a lot. So from Luminalia until like the end of January, even during Luminalia, I'd say you just really don't hear a whole lot from Star Citizen. You might not even hear back from CIG. So you might not even hear back from CIG till the beginning of February. So there's a lot that you just don't get in that period. And then there's like months between some of these events where you just don't get a whole lot. April is normally one of those months where you just don't get a whole lot. June, July, you just don't get a whole lot. Then you get Ship Showdown, so a lot of these months are you just don't get a whole lot. All right, so we're gonna start over here on Twitch. One major problem with the ROC DS is the driver has an enclosed system, unlike the ROC, but the turret operator does not. Yes, so yes, that's what there's definitely some issues with the ROC DS they need to solve. But I think if I'm building a fleet, I would currently buy a Geo, and then I would buy a ROC DS, or I would buy a ROC with a DS upgrade. I wouldn't apply the upgrade, but I would buy both of those because I think that would be the better combination than having a ROC and a ROC DS. I'd rather have the Geo and the ROC DS, because the ROC DS would be like for the more intensive things, right? However, I say this assuming that the ROC DS gets a reconcept, which is why I wouldn't be all in on the ROC DS, because I do think it needs a reconcept. The obvious question to ask is, what is the next giveaway ship? Ooh, I don't know. Hold on, let me figure that out. I don't even know what I announced as the next giveaway ship. Let's see what I got. Let's see what I got. Did I buy an extra Atlas Geo? I did. I'll give away a Geo. There we go. An Atlas Geo. Since I'm talking about it anyway, we'll give away an Atlas Geo. That sounds like a good giveaway. All right. There it is. There's our next giveaway thing. Keep adding those questions. It's a 2-hour stream. We're going to have a lot to say about everything. What do you think the Anvil Valhalla will be? If the Anvil Valhalla, is that confirmed? Is that a leak thing? Here, let me look it up. I'm not getting anything. Or are we talking about the Anvil Asgard? I think maybe that's what we're talking about. Um, I would hope something that has the name Valhalla or Asgard is a massive ship, because Asgard is a city, Valhalla is literally like a plane of existence. It's a massive, these are massive things we're talking about. So I would hope it would be at least a large ship, if nothing else. So going with the Anvil Valhalla, this is what I'll do. Let's kind of show you my thought process here and how I would work this out, what the Valhalla is going to be. Let's see if I can give you a peek into the mind of Billionaire Ninja. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if you guys want to look in there. There's some crazy stuff in there, so just saying. You might not be careful what you ask for, but nobody asked for it. What's up, Citizen Ninja? What's up, T-Jack? All right, so let's see what we can do here. All right, so trying to figure out, if you're just joining, we're just trying to figure out what the Anvil Valhalla or Anvil Asgard is going to be. We're going to call it the Anvil Asgard until somebody tells me that those are two separate ships. I do believe, yeah. We are going to try to figure out what the Asgard is going to be live. So I have not thought about this at all. I think somebody mentioned it in a previous stream and I just never gave it a second thought. So this is the way my thought process is working, right? So first, if I remember how to use this thing, let me see, can I restrict it based on focus? I don't think I can. So we'll just have to put the manufacturers in order. Okay, so it's an Anvil ship. So first, this is what I'll do. I'll look at all of the current Anvil ships that exist, right? So we got a light fighter, we got micro freight, we got a small medical, we got personal trans. I don't know. What do you want to call it? Micro freight again, but with a little bit more combat efficiency. Then, of course, we got a whole suite of fighters, some of which can carry a little bit of cargo. Then we have Pathfinder scanning. We have more fighters, but stealth this time. Then we have heavy fighter. We have a bomber, another light fighter, heavy fighter. Boarding, right? So boarding is huge. It's I think the only boarding ship. So I don't think Anvil is going to do another boarding ship. I think we could safely say that it's not going to be a boarding ship, but you know, that's in my thought process. Then the Terrapin, which is, you know, like our tracker up here, except with better range and much more expensive. And then we have another medical ship. So we've got a smaller medical ship, a larger medical ship. We have, which I still think the medic should have had a size 1 bed. If it had a tier 1 bed, I think they would have sold a lot more of those. Paladin, which is a gunship. I'm actually surprised that Anvil only has one true gunship. So I'm not. What's up, David Baldwin? So one of the things that I am going to keep, you know, near the top is that it could be another gunship. The drop ship, the Valkyrie is kind of like their, you know, it seems like it has multiple roles. Obviously, it's a drop ship first, but it can carry a decent amount of cargo. It can carry, you know, a decent amount of vehicles. So I think it is kind of a more general purpose ship, but multi-crew, obviously. And then the Carrack, which is one of the most multi-crew or multi-purpose ships in the game, if not the single most multi-purpose ship in the entire game. So that kind of covers a lot of bases, but specifically here it mentions expedition, freight, landcraft transport, and medical. Now, let's not forget that it can do, obviously, they can only list 4 things that they can do here, but it can also repair to some extent. We don't know exactly what, but it most likely will be parts. And it may even be able to do some type of manufacturing. But the biggest seller, of course, is the fact that it is modular. So this thing can have any added capability. The Crucible, heavy repair. Not, I think there's just not a whole lot of manufacturers that have repair ships. So Anvil is ahead of the curve there. And then of course the Liberator, which is light carrier and heavy freight. So looking at all of these things, right? We can go back up here and we can look at all of the roles and things that they have listed. This is not an exhaustive list, but we can look at these things, right? So we know that they've got fighters covered. I would say they could do heavy gunship. I don't think bomber would be, I could see a variant being a bomber, but I don't think it would be the main role of it. I can see all 3 of these, corvette, frigate, destroyer, because when you look at Anvil, here, one of the main things they're missing, you know, these are not gigantic ships. You could go all the way down. The Carrack is large, the Crucible is large, the Liberator is large. I think the Crucible will become a capital ship, so that might be, you know, we'll see. But you know, that's my thought process, is that that ship will grow, and then the Carrack is going to stay large, and the Liberator is going to stay large. But we'll see. We'll see what all that turns out to be. But yeah, if the Crucible grows, that might be their capital ship. But they just don't have capital ships, right? So that's why I think they need a capital. You know, they do have a lot of ships, though. One of the things that I look at, though, is the likelihood of the manufacturer, right? They're a combat manufacturer. So I'm thinking in this, just in the combat role, gunship, heavy gunship, they just released a gunship, so I don't think it'll be another gunship. So either a heavy gunship, which would mean it would be larger than the Paladin. And if we go back down here, you can see that the Paladin is medium, so that would fulfill my requirement of it being a large ship, at least a large ship. So it could be a heavy gunship. I would believe heavy bomber. I would believe any of these 3, corvette, frigate, destroyer. I would believe any of those 3, but that's for pretty much all new ships that I think are going to be large. So I'm open to heavy gunship, heavy bomber, and these 3. Combat support. I would be open to electronic warfare. We kind of talked about what an Anvil capital would look like. So maybe, I don't know if that was in relation to the Asgard. What's up, Space Marine? What's up, Sand Chimera? One of the things that I thought about was like this, you know, potential ship that Anvil could make as a capital. And it was kind of a mixture of a few things. So the electronic warfare part being that it could, you know, be invisible. Maybe it could be a larger version of the Mantis, where it pulls a lot of people out of Quantum, or multiple people, or larger ships, or whatever, and it doesn't have those same restrictions. But then it can't have, you know, standard weapons. It can only disable or something, and that's kind of how you balance it. There's a lot of things, you know, that it could be. But again, I think that should have a name related to a spider, right? Because it would effectively be like a web for spaceships. So that's why I don't think the Asgard is going to be the interdictor electronic warfare, because I think they would save that for something else. I don't think it'll be a boarding ship, just because we haven't even got the first one, so I doubt they'll announce a second one before. So I'm going to exclude dropship from my mindset, or boarding from my mindset. Dropship, they have a heavy, you know, dropship already, so I doubt they'll drop another one, and it just doesn't seem likely. Mine layer, I am open to, but again, we don't have the first one, so announcing a second one would be kind of weird. Freight is always open. But I don't think its primary ability will be freight. I think that would be a secondary thing. So I would be willing to put that in the secondary category. Uh, Landcraft, again, we have the Liberator. So Landcraft transport doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But passenger transport, I'm open to. Again, I don't think that would be the primary purpose, and I would be leaning more towards it being a drop ship than passenger transport. So this would have to be like third or fourth, and I just don't see Anvil getting into the passenger transport game. So I'm going to take that one off the list. Prisoner transport, however, I do believe. So that could be another one that we put up there. Like I said, freight would be secondary. Data, I almost skipped over data. Data, I believe, could be, again, a second, third, fourth focus. I don't think it would be the primary focus. Reporting, I don't think they would create a reporting ship because it's Anvil, and then that's just tractor beam. So then there's the medical. Now, all of these start to become a little bit more believable. So we have medical, I think, is believable. I just think the name would make more sense if it was something related to something with medicine, or something that just seemed more medical related, or like I think that name would be a little bit more obvious. So I'm not gonna say medical. Recovery doesn't seem, it's too industrial. Refueling would be a secondary purpose. I don't think it's a snub. Stealth, it could be a big stealth ship, you know, but I just don't like the name. The name convention doesn't really fit there. Carrier, like I said, we don't have that first carrier, so I don't think they're going to come with the second one. Commerce kind of works, but again, Anvil's not really leaning into industry that much. So that's why I think really the only thing here that makes sense would be repair, if it's going to be a larger repair ship instead of like making the Crucible larger, right? Or a medical ship. I think the only two that are really valid from here are medical and repair. And I would lean medical because they already have a repair ship. So, you know, it doesn't make sense for them to give another one. I don't think any of these industrial things will be in there with the exception of scanning. But again, they have a lot of this already, and I think this would be a secondary thing. And then when it comes to all this bespoke stuff, Expedition is the only one on here that makes sense. But again, they already have the Carrack. So unless it's modular and has the ability to do Expedition, I just don't think. But I would say modular is, it's very possible that this ship is modular. So I think I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with me thinking that it's modular. I'm going to say that it has two variants. I'm going to say it has a medical variant, and I'm going to say that it also is a heavy gunship and a corvette or frigate. I'm going to say frigate. I'm going to say a heavy gunship frigate with a that leans more towards medical, and I don't think it'll be like drop ship or passenger transport, but I do think it will have landing pads, not to the extent of the Kraken, but to the extent of like a little bit kind of, I don't know, I want to say like the Idris, but I don't think it'll have so much room. But I do think you'll be able to land, you know, a medium-sized ship in there. And yeah, I would say that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I don't think it'll be data or anything like that. I do think it'll carry a decent amount of cargo, you know, 600-700 SEU of cargo. This is, again, assuming that they're open to doing massive ships. I don't even know if they're like putting a pause on all massive ships, right? But that's the only thing that I can really say we don't have. Like, we don't have that. I mean, you can count the Endeavor as a capital ship and then say we have a modular medical version, right? But like, if you just do a straight variant, the same way we have the Kraken and the Kraken Privateer, then you could say like this, you can kill two birds with one stone. Here's your medical capital, but it's military medical, right? So that allows it to still have some guns at this larger size, and you can be able to justify that. Like it's a defensive medical ship. And then you have the one that's kind of like a frigate, but it has the maybe it, the thing we don't have yet is that frigate that is dedicated to attacking using bombs and missiles, right? So we have the Polaris. So I get that we have the Polaris, but that still has like the big gun and the mix of the size 10, right? But what about Anvil saying we're going to go all in on missiles? We'll have, PDS, of course, and then we'll have the ability to, fight off those medium ships, but like everything else is going to be missiles. Like our thing is we shoot so many missiles at you that your PDS is going to be overloaded and you're going to get hit anyway, right? I can imagine that existing. And then, for the medical variant, all of those massive missile bays and all of that stuff are turned into like medical rooms and things like that. And ways of getting patients inside the massive ship rather than, instead of getting the bombs out, now you're getting the patients in. Does that make sense? I think that would be a really cool variant for them to do. And I also think it would fill a gap that we don't have. So there you have it. That's how my mind works a little bit. I skipped a lot of parts because I didn't want to just be talking for 20 minutes straight. Get those questions in. I think carrier also fits because carrier always fits. Especially if it's a large ship like a Corvette, frigate, size, I could imagine it also having some light carrier stuff. I just don't think it would be like to the level of the Kraken, because I think it would have to be somewhere between the Liberator and the Kraken, and I just think that would make sense because that would fill a gap that we don't have. It could be the first ever capital ship with a third variant, right? Like unless you count the K, P, and the M, right, for the Idris. I guess you could say that's the third, right? But like a true, true variant, right? Not like something that's just modular, right? Yeah, because I could see, those the same way I could see those missiles being loaded in as patients being loaded in. I could also see if it's a carrier ship, those could be, vehicles being loaded in at those same areas by turning them into lifts, or it could be dragonfly bays or whatever other version of that we want to do. So yeah, I could see the carrier thing. I just think that would be boring as hell. I really hope it's not another carrier. As much as I don't mind it being like another capital ship because I just love large ships, I would really hope that they are, trying to do something different with the capital ship. And I think a medical heavy bomber, heavy gunship, they kind of already done the heavy gunship. So I think medical heavy bomber, heavy torpedo bomber, type of ship. I think that would kind of switch things up. And they could even say that it's their answer to the Polaris. It's Anvil's answer to the Polaris, in some way. But we'll see. It could be carrier plus one of these things I mentioned. It could be none of these things I mentioned. It could be just a carrier. We'll see. But even if it is a carrier, I would still love to see how it compares to the Kraken. I would still love to see how it compares to the Kraken. Is it going to have less pads, but maybe larger pads? Or is it going to have no large pads and all small pads? Is it going to be more internal than it is external? There's still a lot of questions there. All right, so Let's see. Anvil Valhalla should be a large medical ship. I'm with you. I don't know if it should only be a medical ship. I would agree that it could have a secondary purpose, whether that's carrier, freight, bombing, whatever. I like that idea of having a variant, a medical variant that is focused on medical, a bomber variant, and then again you could have a carrier variant. You could have a, you know, I think freight can be secondary to any one of those. So you don't even need a fully freight, option, which I don't think Anvil should be doing anyway. Uh, the Asgard probably going to be good for bringing up the rear of a convoy. Hey, I love it. I love it. What's up, T Jack? What's up, JF? What's up, Space Marine? Newer ships seem to be more biased towards group play. Seems to be a push for grouping with CZs and Hathor. Okay. Yeah. What's up, Great War Mage? No, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Um, yeah, when I think about new ships, I'm very what's the word? I'm very hopeful, right? So like when I think of new ships, I'm like, what would I want it to be? Because when you're doing speculation about things you have no clue about, then why not be hopeful, right? And then you can be realistic, right? So you can be hopeful first, and then you can bring yourself down to realism, or you could just be realistic at first and never be hopeful. I like to have hope, okay? So I'm always going to be hopeful first, and then as things get released, I'll bring myself down to back to ground, because then I get to keep going up and then coming down. So the idea here is, what should it be? I said what I think it should be. Heavy bomber, medical, corvette or frigate sized with some freight options, medical variant, bomber variant, and you could even do a carrier version, right? What it most likely will be is a carrier with some gunship vibes, but with also a little bit of freight. So like we don't know what it's gonna be, but that one seems it's the more boring option and it's the more simple option. So, you know, it's more likely that it's that than my, medical variant or whatever. But I'm gonna go with the medical and the heavy bomber because that's what I want it to be. So that's what it should be. CIG, listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else. All right. Um, yeah, but I normally don't look at a whole lot of stuff for leaks. I know there's a lot of people that cover the leaks. I like to be a somewhat surprised. I don't mind leaks. I don't mind that people do leaks. I just like to be a little surprised. So I don't look at everything that's a leak. But I am excited for the Perseus. I'm excited for the TAC. I'm excited for the Paladin. These are all things that could come at Invictus. I mean, if the Perseus drops during Invictus, that's going to be a mic drop for. I think there's going to be a mic drop for CIG, because to release a ship that's that well received and to have it ready to go at a mid-year event, like flyable, I think would be like, well, that answers all the questions of what they've been busy doing, right? Like, so yeah, I think that would be huge. An orbital bombardment ship, that is actually on my list. I'm glad you mentioned that, T-Jack. On my list, in a previous stream, I said that I'm going to go through and make like a list of what ships should be made by each manufacturer if each manufacturer gets a capital ship. That is one of them. I won't tell you which manufacturer I have it for, but they already allow certain ships to release things that touch the ground and go boom boom. So that should let you know enough. But yeah, whatever ship that they release, the ironclad assault, yeah, that would be great. Like, it doesn't matter because I'm excited for all of the possibilities, right? I'm trying to think of other ships, unreleased ships, unreleased. Does anybody have that link to all the unreleased ships? Let me see if I can find it real quick. I really need to save this page. Let's see. I thought I had one here. Man, I swear there is a website, or maybe it wasn't a website. Maybe it was. Well, I could just look at the loaner ship matrix and that'll show me. I mean, I think we all know it's probably not going to be the Idris. But that would also be huge if they drop the Idris. That would be a break the internet moment, as close to a break the internet moment as we could get. I mean, they could announce a new ship that's straight to flyable. Imagine a 700 series Origin ship that would break the Star Citizen internet. Let's see what else we got in here. They could announce another thing that would break everything. The Connie rework could be like a surprise Connie rework. Can you imagine? What else? It's got to be something that fights. Javelin, I don't think is ready. I just don't believe that would happen. Kraken? I think the Kraken is too big of a ship, though, to do a surprise announcement. So I'm going to say... And also, they did say that they were going to finish the Ironclad before the Kraken. So I don't think that one's in the cards either. The Liberator, it's not really a combat ship, so I don't think it would really fit. But it can do combat. So it's, it's an option. But I just think that, again, is one of those where it's probably best, if they're going to do the Liberator, it would probably have a little bit of fanfare before it because it's not specifically a combat ship. I would hope we get the Legionnaire. Like there's some in here that you can just drop and it would be awesome. The Nautilus would be crazy. Straight to flyable Nautilus. That would be absolutely insane. But yeah, I don't think anything's bigger than the Perseus. I mean, maybe the Idris. If the Idris dropped, that would be bigger than the Perseus. But the Perseus, I think, if that drops, just drop the mic along with it because that's huge. But I am super looking forward to the TAC. I'm hoping we get the TAC. I'm also hoping that we get the ability to buy the build since technically it's already been released. I would hope that we'd, maybe beginning of March or beginning of May, right before Invictus, they do that as kind of a thing where they're like, the build is ready for you to, maybe they do it with 4.1.2 or something like that. Yeah, there's a few that I think are cool that they could just drop. The Zeus MR. The Zeus MR would be awesome. There's so many. Like, I don't think any of these surprise ships would, like, destroy it. Yes, the Liberator carries combat things. That's why I would be okay with it launching. I just think because it's debatable, I guess, on whether it's a combat ship. I think they would. That's why they would have a little bit more fanfare leading up to it. A real Fat Fury, I can see that. A real Fat Fury, which could just be like a variant of the Guardian with like shorter, wingspan, and I don't know. I think they could pull that off still with the Guardian, with just doing an extra variant. Tac, Paladin, Perseus, Guardian MX, Ironclad. Yeah, that would be excellent for sales. Because there's people who are just waiting on the Paladin to see how it performs to buy it. I think there's a lot of people who already bought the TAC, but once they see them flying around and see the capabilities of them, I think more people will buy them. The Perseus is probably one of the most waited on ships in the entire game. I think maybe you could say like the Merchantman is wanted more. There's a few ships maybe that are wanted more, but there's very few. And the Perseus has a argument for being number one. The Ironclad again is one of the most wanted ships, but the problem with the Ironclad is like the Assault would be the one that is combat focused. So I think it's more likely that the Ironclad launches near in another event or like closer towards the end of the year. No bounty hunter loop in yet, so maybe not this time. I personally see the Liberator as a combat ship like Invasion landing craft. Okay, I see what you're saying. But yes, but only. Well, the Liberator could do that, but then we'd have to say that the C2 could do that as well because the C2 can fit like the tanks in it. Doesn't have as good weapons, but yeah. We'd have to put. I'd say the M2 and the A2 might fit a little easier in that. But yeah, so I see your point though. $5 CCU for the Paladin, same here. Yeah, Liberator dropship. So yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I see how it could fit into the combat ship meta. I definitely see how it can fit in there. So I'm not arguing that it's not combat. I'm saying I think I don't know how much CIG considers it a combat craft, like for the sake of releasing it at Invictus. But yeah, I'm open to the Liberator. I'm definitely open to the Liberator. Let's see. Oh, okay. YouTube's got a lot going on over here. A cruiser class to fit between the destroyer and the carrier. You know what? Let me look this up. This isn't something that I don't think I'm familiar with. Like, I'm familiar with the words and like what I believe each one of those is, but let me look this up. Okay, so you have the battleship, which is the largest one, right? Battleship is the largest, right? Then we have one step down is the cruiser. Or no, one step down is the destroyer. And then a step down from that would be the cruiser. Then a step down from that would be what? Is that the Corvette or the frigate? The frigate, I would think, and then the Corvette. So we got going up, it would be Corvette, frigate, cruiser, destroyer, battleship. Is that correct? Trying to understand this. I don't know what's happening there. Because in this one it says destroyers are smaller than cruisers. So now I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Um, okay, I found another one. Okay, what are these? Okay, so, oh, okay. Now I think I found it. I think I found it. We got Super Dreadnought, Super Dreadnought, Dreadnought, Battleship, Battle Cruiser or Heavy Cruiser, then regular cruiser, then destroyer, then frigate, then corvette, then patrol boat. So that's in descending order. Well, yeah. Okay. So some of these are functions, and then some of these are sizes depending on where you live. So, but we're gonna go with that just because I need some type of reference. So when we say what we're missing, which one of these do we think we're missing? So the battleship would be the javelin, right? The dreadnought would be the Bengal. The battleship would be the javelin. What's the cruiser? What's the heavy cruiser or battle cruiser? Because the is that the Idris? Is the Idris the cruiser or the heavy cruiser? Are we missing the heavy cruiser or are we missing the cruiser? Okay, so we were right on the with the dreadnought. The dreadnought's the Bengal. So that makes the battleship then the javelin, right? And then what's below that? Is the Idris directly below that or two sizes below that? So if the Idris is a frigate, that would make it three sizes below that. So where do you place the carrier at? Is the carrier uh, also a cruiser, or because that's not listed as one of our options here? We got heavy cruiser, cruiser. Here, let me put this up on the screen. That probably would help. Um, Not saying that these are like the end all be all for like how we should look at it, but I'm just trying to figure out a general sense of what we think is how this works. All right. So if we assume these are the classes just for the sake of this conversation, right? Just for the sake of this conversation, we can figure out the actual answers later. I just want to see what do we consider to be bigger, right? If we say the javelin is a dreadnought, right? And we can ignore these sizes or whatever, just going with the actual names here, right? The dreadnought, battleship, right? If we say a dreadnought dreadnought is a Bengal, a battleship is a javelin, or is that what we're saying? Or is it, are we missing the battleship and the javelin is the heavy cruiser? What are we saying with that? So Idris would be the destroyer according to this list. It wouldn't be a cruiser or a battle cruiser. Okay. I can rock with that. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with this though, but the idea here is I don't know what these sizes are because it seems to me that every country does it a little differently. Um, so I would love for like some clarification on what that is. Maybe I'll do like a deep dive into it and kind of figure out what the general consensus is, like what is the international standard? Because maybe there is no international standard and we're all just like saying these differently. So Ivy says, Oh wait, we got a whole wait. We're way back here. Jazzy says, what would your thoughts be on an Atlas container that fits in an X-sized SCU container? This would let ships like the Raft or the Cat easily store and use the Atlas. Does it need? I'm not. Does it need a container? You're saying like for ease of like movement? I could dig that. I could dig that. And then also like provide protection for it, because if it's stored, like, it's like if your box is thrown around by the mail carrier, if it has like enough foam in it, then it's okay. But maybe if things explode outside of the box, your box still gets damaged, right? But yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening. I think we will get the Idris at Invictus. So many leaks. Skin for Invictus, 2 large capital ships, stress tests on PTU. I think it is. I think it is on the board that we get the Idris. I don't think it's a high possibility. I think it's a low probability, or probability is what I meant. I think it's a low probability, but I do think we will get a lot of news about the Idris. I do think we'll be able to fight the Idris or maybe steal the Idris, but launching the Idris, I don't think so. I don't think it's impossible, but I do think it's improbable. Maybe that's what we get. Maybe the P and the K kit, maybe there's different versions of the Idris being out there, rather than just getting the M. CIG said they were saving the Idris for Squadron 42 release, but knowing how little value their words hold, I'm optimistic. I don't know. I never treat anything they say as like word is bond, right? Like I think of it more as like this is their plans and this is what they hope to be able to do, right? But things don't always work out the way we hope for them to do, for them to work out. They said the same thing about the F8C and F7A, so there you go. Squadron 42 was planned for this Invictus. The originally planned gala hints heavily towards it, and there's also the world tour they're doing. That works, but they could also, again, they could remember those months, right? So like from July to October, there's just not a whole lot going on besides Ship Showdown, right? So it could be post Ship Showdown, pre CitizenCon that they launch the Idris. They don't have to wait until CitizenCon. They could say, we're going to shut up all the haters until CitizenCon, and it would bring massive people and massive eyes to CitizenCon. So, there's a lot of ways they can do it. Yeah, if Idris comes with the Perseus doesn't, you'd be disappointed. Yeah. The Perseus, I think, again, like before we get the Idris, I would like to see a few more other ships. I think the Perseus and the Liberator are 2 great examples of that. Like, I think a Liberator with the right loadout would be able to handle, other ships, right? That would add such depth to the game, right? Because now it's not, which ship do I bring? It's which combination of ships do I bring along with my Liberator? And how is my Liberator kitted out to complement the ships that I bring? I think that just adds so much depth to the game. So I would love to see the Liberator added before the Idris, right? I also think the Perseus gives us some like ability to like say, okay, which one of these ships is the big bad, right? Does the Perseus beat out the Polaris? Does the Polaris beat out the Perseus? If we throw, the Idris in there, what combination of these beats out the other? Is one better at distance? Is one better at short? So I think I would just love to see some more options before we get the Idris. But you're right, there was plans. I think, we don't have like confirmation on this stuff unless you guys heard from a developer or something. I do think there was an earlier planning being done. But at the same time, like I said, I don't count those things as this is absolutely going to happen. I think it's like this is what we're planning, and if it works out, this is how it'll be. The realist in you is saying Tack and Paladin with Perseus and Ironclad on the floor. I can believe that. Outside exterior models of that sounds very realistic. Uh, so Asgard instead of the Paladin, maybe we'll see. Yeah, Idris is described as a frigate. I don't know. Again, I don't. I'm not taking those things I put up on the screen as like absolutes. This is just a person on Reddit with like 16 likes. So it's not something I'm taking as like absolute. But like I said, maybe I'll do a video on the way that these things are defined in the real world, and then compare that to the way that CIG, uh, you know, sizes everything, and then we could try to figure out some more dedicated, wording for that. Because and maybe this already exists, and I just don't know what it is. Cruisers are typically bigger than destroyers. Okay. That checks with that thing that I put up earlier, because this has super dreadnought, battleship, battle cruiser, heavy cruiser as all being bigger than cruisers, but it also has cruiser being bigger than destroyer. If CIG launches the Idris at Invictus, what do you think the price increase will be? I don't think they will. I don't think the price of the Idris will go up immediately. I think it will go up eventually. I don't think it'll go up at launch. I think they'll sell some very expensive skins for it. There's gonna be a $40 skin, at least a $40 pack for skins for the Idris. They're gonna make some money off the Idris. Do not, come on. They're gonna make some. Now, what they could do instead of raising the price is they could come out with another variant for the Idris. They have this K kit thing, right? So it's very possible that they just come out with a variant. Maybe one more geared towards cargo or something. I don't know. Maybe one more geared towards destroying or disabling ships rather than destroying. So yeah, Idris skin in the Invictus fleets. See? I mean, it's very possible. I like I said, I don't think the Idris is coming, but it's very possible that it's coming. And it may just be that they drop skins for the Idris and give you an announcement date. It could be that they say, here's your Idris. Having played on an Idris multiple times now, it is not out of the realm of possibility. All right, let's see what we got over here. Super heavy dreadnought in SC lore, which is just one giant gun designed to kill a Vandal kingship. Okay. That's probably gonna be like, that's probably gonna be like part of the game. Is like, there's gonna be some weapon that can kill the Vandal super dreadnought or the Vandal dreadnought, and like you have to like figure out how to turn it back on, and then you got to turn it on before they get here, some type of thing like that. I could see the game ending like that. So Idris is also a carrier, so that would make it a frigate. I have no idea how this works. Naval to space is hard to convert due to change in combat. Okay, no, I get that. That's why I think this does warrant a video, because I think we have to go by what CIG has already said, and I don't know enough of what CIG has already said. I don't know what they said is a frigate. I don't know what they said is a battleship cruiser. I don't know what they said is a destroyer. So I would have to look that all up. only base the classifications on what we can drive. Well, CIG has also said that some of these will be some of these sizes. I just don't know what's there. So I'll go off that, but also like what CIG has said. Idris MR, the bounty hunter capital with a size 10 EMP and a QD that has 100 click range. Yeah, I see it. Let's go. Mining variant, a mining Idris. That would be insane. That would be insanity. We got the mining Idris before the Orion. That would be insane. All right, let's shift. Let's shift a little bit. So, outside of ships, all right? So, outside of ships, we don't talk about vehicles enough, right? What vehicles are you looking forward to? Like, what vehicle do you think we still need that we do not have? What vehicle do you think, whether it's industrial or combat? Let's try to keep it more towards combat though, because of Invictus coming up and the ability of a surprise vehicle, like the possibility of a surprise vehicle. What vehicle do you think we're missing? Or if you can't think of one that we're missing, what's one that you think can be improved, right? We kind of talked about the Rock DS a little bit, but yeah, let's give some time, some credit to the vehicle team. The regular vehicle. Like it could be anything that's just not a ship, right? So we can throw snubs in there as well, even though I would say snubs are technically ships, but I would say include snubs in this just so we can, have a little bit of availability. Because I don't think we talk about snubs as much when we talk about spaceships. So, okay. Oh, how do you say your name? Inkisun? Inkaisun? Inkisun? Says, what we need the most right now is a large cargo carrying vehicle. The vehicles we have now that carry cargo are pretty pathetic in how many SCU they can carry, they can hold. So I think you're right. I think I thought the CSVSM was gonna solve that, but then it was like 4 SCU of cargo. But we need that like oversized hauler vehicle that can carry at least 32 SCU. I think we need a 32 SCU, something that is a vehicle that you can put 32 SCU of cargo on. I think that would be a pretty decent amount of cargo for a vehicle to carry. I don't think you could get much bigger than that unless you get, a 64 SCU thing. It would have to be really slow. It would have to have some decent defenses. But yeah, I could see that. A 32 SCU cargo carrier. Oh, Samortis, you said that. Okay, I didn't even see that. So we'll give that idea goes to Samortis. Let's see. Sister Ninja says the G12, G12R, G12A be helpful for the CCU chains. Yeah, I dig that. I've been looking forward to the G12 for a while. I think that it should be reconcepted though. I think it should be a 3-seater vehicle because we don't have anything filling that gap. If it's going to be the same size or I don't know if it was a little like slightly larger than or the same size as the Ursa, but like if it's gonna be that big, I don't want it to be a 2-seater. The G12 needs to fill a space that isn't already filled, or it needs to be a legitimate competitor to those, right? And if it's gonna be the Ursa but faster, like it loses a little bit of its cargo capabilities, but then gains this speed thing, then maybe I can deal with that. But the Ursa still can fit more people, and like I don't think I should lose 2 seats to be able to carry 2 cargo when I could take the Ursa. I'd rather go slower in the Ursa, right? And then have people stand up, like I just, I think the G12 needs a little bit of a reconcept. Maybe if you add that stealth thing, like if you add in stealth or something that makes it like harder to detect or something, then maybe I'd be okay with that. Origin luxury hover tank, that would be very cool. I think that would be the likelihood of it is very low, but I love the idea. A non-origin hover tank. We just want a hover tank. I like that. I like hover tank. I think I think having an alternative to the I just think, do we want, if we get rid of the tonk, like, do we want something that could completely replace the tonk? Like, it would have to be less, either less effective than the tonk in some way, or equal to the tonk in some way. Like, you can't make it too much stronger than the tonk, unless we're saying that there will be classes of tanks, you know. But with only one in the game and only adding a second one, I would think that it would have to be an either or thing. Like, it would be either the tonk or the hover tonk, right? So I see a large mining vehicle that can punch up like the Geo goes down. So can mine rock ground minables in smaller ship rocks. Okay, I see that. I don't know if we would get that soon, though, considering the Geo just came out, and that the Rock DS still needs kind of a reconcept. So I don't know how quickly we would see that. And it could be that they reconcept both the Rock and the Rock DS together and make the Rock or Rock DS fit that exactly what you're saying. So until we get a Rock DS reconcept, I don't know if we would see that. But I do like the idea. Let's see. I'd love to see a massive multi-story ground vehicle that could be kind of a mobile base that carries like 320 SU of cargo, and you have to build it on site rather than transport it in a ship. Then when you are done with that planet, you'd have to disassemble the vehicle. Ooh, massive vehicles. You know what? I think I see what you're saying. Oh man, I think there is a version of what you're talking about. Isn't it called Mortal Engines? I don't know if it was a book first or if it was. I think it was a novel first. Yes, it was a novel first, right? But the way that Mortal Engines does their vehicles, I can see something like that. It doesn't have to be like a full city, but let me show you guys an image of what I'm talking about for the people who don't know what Mortal Engines was. I don't remember if that movie was any good. I don't remember if it was any good. I remember it being mid, but I could be wrong. From my memories, it was mid, but I think the book was really good. So my understanding could be wrong. But I do remember the movie being very mid. Like, it had some really cool things about it, but I think the majority of it was mid. And I don't remember if it was, I don't know, I don't remember it making enough money to get like a sequel or anything. So I don't think we'll see any more of Mortal Engines. But before I go down that rabbit hole, I want to try to find Mortal Engines vehicles. Okay, so here, this one looks good. Let's do this one here. And then I want to get like a few of them. Let's see, this one here. And so what we're doing right now is kind of like what I'll do in the, in that, the new types of video that I do, where I kind of go through and say, what could the capital ship look like or whatever. here, like, okay, we got 3 images here. You know, they're not great images, but they're good enough for what we're doing here. All right, so let's do this. All right, so this is kind of what we're talking about for folks who've never seen Mortal Engines. Yeah, like what the Jawas were using in Star Wars, yeah. So it's like a massive vehicle, but it's also like people are like walking around on this thing, like it's like a moving city, kind of. But it doesn't have to be like a massive city. Like, you know, there's here, I thought I had different versions of it, but maybe not. That's one version. Here's another version of it. So this is kind of like a moving factory, I think, this version. And then there's this one, which is like more of like a combat tank thing, it looks like. So yeah, you know, that's kind of the idea here. And I would totally be into that. It obviously, because it's a new type of vehicle, it would have to be very simple. So it would probably be something that's just carries cargo and has some like missiles and stuff that you can kind of walk around on a little bit. Kind of like the way they would build like the Idris, but how they would build it if it was a ground vehicle. So yeah, I could kind of see that. Let's see, Argo mining support ship similar to the Expanse in that it helps keep the mole mining longer, but also carries 2 to 4 geos for ground operations. Okay, I definitely can see that. That are we saying that's a vehicle though? Let's see what else we got over here. Large mining vehicle, you said. Gravlev AA gun. Anti-air Gravlev? Okay. Okay. And you could push it like the cargo plate or the okay. I see what you're saying there. They could set up for ground defense, make them like PDCs? Yes. So like it could either be a pushable vehicle, like something that you don't ride in, but you can push around. Or it could be a vehicle that you get in with like no covers to it, right? Like it's something you sit in like you sit in a hover bike, but it doesn't have any defenses. It's just an AA gun that you're driving around. But it's not an AA gun in the regular sense. It's a PDC AA gun where it auto fires. So you don't have to worry about aiming it or whatever. You just worry about driving it around and putting it in the right place. That, I think, would be a really cool idea. I think we need a Recon Cyclone. Recon Cyclone that can relay data to the birds in the air and a mine layer. Running into the enemy base and boom, and another boom, and then there goes your Nova. So, okay. So I think we have a Recon Cyclone already, but I think what you're saying is like make that, you know, a data runner kind of, and either have a variant that drops mines, or are we talking about giving that Recon thing the ability to drop mines? I think a variant would make more sense because it would be a little too OP if it could do both the Recon and the mine laying in such a small vehicle. Book, first 3 books. Like the NASA rocket carrier. Okay, I dig that. So yeah, they tried to cram 3 books into 2 hours. Yeah, that didn't make sense. They should have just told a complete story of the first book, or maybe even going halfway into the second book, and then that would have made more sense for the Mortal Engines. And then tell the complete story, and then like leave it on a cliffhanger and hope that you get a second, you know, chance to make a part 2, or you just tell one part of the story, and if people want more, they'll ask for more. But I also don't understand how these movies keep getting these $100 million budgets with like nobody asking for them, right? Like right now we are like, let's just do Game of Thrones just because that's a popular one, right? There's plenty of people saying like make a Game of Thrones movie, right? You know, it could just tell a singular story of do one here, do one there, right? Um, you know, it could be in any age or whatever, but there's people that are clamoring for a Game of Thrones movie. It doesn't have to be, you know, we do another season of Game of Thrones. We could just get a Game of Thrones movie, bring those characters back and say this is what it's like for them 10 years later, etc., right? 2028, right? There's people that would love that. There's fans that are clamoring for that, right? But I think the people who loved the Mortal Engines book would have wanted a TV show, even if it was just a limited series, right? Because then you could get all 3 books done. First season is book 1, second season is book 2, third season is book 3. So making that a movie was an ill-advised idea. Give that 100 million to a TV show and let them build the world and build the universe, right? And so I just think sometimes Hollywood gets it wrong, and I'm glad that Apple TV, and you know, I don't give a lot of shout outs to Apple. I'm a Android person all the way, and I think Android has some very problematic business practices. However, what they're doing with Apple TV is incredible, and I don't think anybody can deny that. The amount of shows, the quality of the shows that you get on Apple TV, and I think HBO Max is also killing it. Like the quality of shows you get on HBO, or let's just say Max now, the quality of shows you get on Max and the quality of shows that you get on Apple TV are neck and neck. And so like, I just think the quality of what Hollywood is doling out in the movie realm is not great compared to like the TV realm. We're getting a lot more great shows and a lot less great movies. But I do say Sinners was a great movie. I just saw it. It was incredible. Back to what we were talking about though. Yeah, a lot of people also trying to tell stories better than the book, rather than just changing things that make more sense for like there's certain things that you should change because certain things don't translate from a book to a TV series well. So there's things that you should change, and I would say you must change. But most of the time, people just want to see their books brought to life. They don't want to see their books brought to life and drastically changed, right? They want to see their books brought to life. And then you change some of the minor details, but none of the major details. And then, you know, maybe you throw in an extra twist at the end just to make sure that it's not completely predictable by, you know, reading the book. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got. There was something else I wanted to talk about. There was another ship that I was looking forward to, but it also, I am really looking forward to more medical gameplay. So yeah, let's just talk about that. The Apollo, right? I don't think it's out of the cards that we get the Apollo. Even though it's not a combat ship, I don't think that the Apollo has so much work that it needs that we can't get that ship soon. But I also wanted to use that to kind of talk about medical as a career. So like I'll do a whole video on medical as a career, but one of the things I'm really hoping for at this CitizenCon, which I've said before, is more of a focus on Death of a Spaceman and what the finality of that will look like. What is the final product of Death of a Spaceman? I think we need that to kind of know how to plan, because if medical is going to be a much bigger, you know, if it's going to be a much bigger deal than I think it is, well, or not that I think it is, I do think it will be a much bigger deal, especially with what they're talking about with 4.1.1, how like there's a crisis where people are actually dying, meeting the true death that I like to say now. I can imagine medical being a really big deal, and if that's the case, I really want to know what that's going to look like, because that's not something that we got a huge answer on in the last CitizenCon. So I would love to see that be a major focus of CitizenCon. So that's what makes me think the Apollo would come closer to CitizenCon if they are, you know, focusing on that. So, and if another thing is, I don't know if this world tour thing is this year. I would think that this year would be, maybe Bar Citizens, obviously, but I think next year would make sense for the world tour because now they have a game, a full-fledged game, and everywhere they go, they can do giveaways for the game and stuff like that. So I think next year would make more sense for the world tour thing, which would also be a good reason to not have a physical Citizen Con this year because of how much money it costs them. So they could save that money, try to get as much money as they can to support the world tour for next year. So I think 2026 we get that world tour. But yeah, medical, I hope we get some significant information about medical. We got so much information about base building. We got so much information about the worlds that they're building, how the weather will work, so much information about that stuff. But Death of a Spaceman, I think for any game, you have to nail that part. You have to nail the respawn of the characters, right? So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. But I'm really looking forward to being a doctor in the game because I think it'll be an extremely unique version of gameplay. So like the closest we can say that it'll be is something like repair, right? Like how you repair a ship. I can imagine like if you're doing bone restructuring, that kind of being the same as like repairing the hull of a ship. They could reuse tools in that way, but only for like a certain part of the gameplay. But I also think like the ability to give people, prosthetic arms and limbs, cybernetics, right? I think that could really be interesting. I really sit back and I'm like, oh man, I can imagine having like a shelf full of cybernetics and being like, okay, this one will make you punch harder. This one will make you make your grip last longer. If you get the prosthetic leg, that one will make your fall damage less, etc. Right? And just going through that kind of in a like cyberpunk way. I kind of think that's where they should go with it. As far as the buffs and stuff. Yeah. So I think medical is one of those things I'm super looking forward to. What else we got? Have you looked at all the proposed modules for the Caterpillar? I think there is 20 of them grouped into categories. Let's see. Proposed Caterpillar modules. Ooh, I am quite hungry. I think I need like a quick snack. Let me see what I got. Let me see what I got. Excuse me. I don't want to pass out on the live. Some popcorn. I don't think I've eaten all day, and it is 3 p.m. where I'm at. So yeah, this is one of those, yeah, you got to eat something or your blood sugar or something's going to get too low. All right, let's look for this Caterpillar module thing. So I see one on the community hub. I see a video from 2022. Let's see, Star Citizen. That would be crazy. If I passed out on stream, that would be like, that would probably make some type of Star Citizen news, like, streamer passes out because he refused to eat in front of other people. All right. Okay, so I see this video here. I don't want to play anybody else's video. We don't want to get copyright stricken over here. Let me see. This one doesn't actually list modules. This one has like some ideas. We can use those though. This is just guessing when we'll get the modules. Oh, okay, here we go. We got a Reddit post. So let me put this one up. I think this is probably San Chimera says, "Do it. Think of the views." No, I don't. You gotta remember, this isn't one of those channels where views are the primary goal here, because otherwise I just talk crap about CIG all day and everybody would watch, because that's, you know, negativity is what sells. But I'm like probably one of the more positive people when it comes to Star Citizen. So obviously the views are not my concern. Otherwise I would just be negative all the time. You know who we're talking about. There are some people out there that are only negative about Star Citizen, and they get thousands and thousands of views. So no hate over here. Get your money. It's just not, that's not why I do it. All right. So let's get this up on the screen. All right. So living space, right? They start with living space, all right? Obviously, you can make it to where you can put a ton of beds in each one of the module little things. So I think that's one that makes sense. With weapon racks, armor pods, you could effectively turn it into a dropship slash, you know, battle, what do you call it? Capital, or not capital ship, base, like a base. You know, maybe you swap one or two of those out with an army barracks, and now it's, you know, more like a drop ship or, you know, whatever. You could put shops in there. I think those things are a little small for some of the shops, but you could fit, like, I could see shops potentially fitting in there. But some of them, I think you would have to restrict the type of shops that could go in there. Med bay, absolutely. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I actually think two of these are a foregone conclusion. The living space, I think, is a foregone conclusion. Adding beds, adding weapons rack, armor pods, things like that. And I think the med bay is a foregone conclusion. I think it's for sure, those are for sure going to be two options. Mobile salvage. Now, these are actually don't think that we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get the ability to turn something into a salvage ship or turn something into a mining ship. What I do think is we'll get the ability to, like, better support salvage or better support mining, but I don't think we'll be able to do that, because I think you would have to explain how do you fit all of that technology into, like, this very small dock or this very small modular space, and it's much harder to do. It's much harder to do with salvage because of all the processes that have to go through with salvage and things like that. But we do have salvage guns and stuff like that, so I could see it being, like, again, more supportive of those things rather than, like, getting a full kit. Docking bay. 4 docking collars. I could see that, and maybe a boarding module. I could see that, but yeah. I think cargo is the standard, so yeah. I mean, that's really what I see here. I think those are all pretty good. I don't know about the salvage. I could see the rest of them being possibilities, though. Let's see. I think there was one other one. This one had medical salvage. Okay, yeah, this one's got some interesting stuff, so we could do this one too. Okay. So we went over the medical module. I don't think there'll be a salvage mod. But the Dragonfly repair bay, you could just go full stop and say it'll be like a full-on repair bay for vehicles, like a full vehicle garage. But maybe that one can only go at the end or something to make sure that there's, like, a little bit more room or area to put the vehicles in. But it would have to be whatever vehicles can fit in there. But yeah, I can definitely see that. Not a full garage, but like a repair bay for vehicles that fit there, or you know, you can stop and let tools off of it and things like that. Fuel pods, I can definitely see. I would go so far as to say that's pretty much a guarantee. I don't know if it would be fuel that you could use in the Caterpillar, but like a fuel storage, like a way to transverse with fuel that can be sold. I can see that. Large guns, I can see that. I would say that's a foregone conclusion that at some point there will be a gun module. Ship repair module, I don't think it's going to be big enough. And crafting module, small crafting I can see, like the crafting that we do on the reclaimer. How you can fabricate small items. I could see that. I could see that happening. And refinery, again, I think that fits with like the salvage and the mining. I think there's just too much there. Like you would need too much. Like you would have to explain how this refinery module can add all of that capability without all the other things that the ships require. So, yeah. But yeah, I think some good options there. All right, what do we got? What do we got? Positivity is one of the main reasons you watch. I appreciate that. Caterpillar mining is mining support. Okay. A refinery or crafting module would be pretty good for this. Yeah. I think refinery takes it a little bit too far because I just don't think you can explain how that fits in there. But I could see it for like for instance, the Galaxy has a refinery module, right? That makes sense because of how much of the ship you have to remove in order to make that a refinery module, right? But with like this small part, this small little section that you're removing from the Caterpillar, it doesn't make as much sense to me. Drone module, I definitely see that. Base building, it would have to be really small, yeah, like you said, but yeah, I can see that. Because if you can fit drones in a cart and in a vehicle, then you can surely fit them in a module. All right, what we got over here, Twitch? I think one of the key aspects of medical gameplay will be that there will be certain diseases that you contract while exploring, and they can only be cured by players who are high-level doctors in their own hospitals. I would love that, Cody Fox. That would be awesome. Have you considered doing a review series on components? Maybe add in lore and company history. I started, if you look on my channel, I think I did two. I think I did power plants and coolers, but then they changed the way everything worked. So I am no longer invested in components until they finalize how everything works. I think this system that we have now is close, but I don't think it's all the way there yet. There's still some missing components as well. Like we don't have all of the stealth components. We don't have all the competition components. We don't have them at all the sizes. So until they finalize that a bit more, I'm gonna stay away from components, but definitely going to happen at some point. Question, I may have missed it, but did you answer if you are still up for Pirate Swarm this week? Yes. This week, yes. I should be able to do it this weekend, just don't know what day yet. I'm thinking either Friday night or Saturday night. But that's all I can say for sure. It'll be Friday or Saturday night. Just gotta plan it. Just gotta plan it. I think a low tier refinery would easily fit when I compare the size of the Expanse. Okay, you make a great point, CV. It's not that I don't think it'll fit. It's it's that I don't think they could explain how such a small area could have all of the technology for the refinery and then connect it back to like the power plant. Like like it's like the only way you would be able to fit the refinery in there is if like maybe it took up 2 slots or something like that. Not because of the amount of space that it takes up in something like an expanse, but like the amount of technology that it requires in general to connect back to like the power plant of the caterpillar and still be effective. So I think like physically it would fit. I just don't think logically it makes sense. I think they would have to switch to something like the Endeavor where it takes up like 2 modules or something like that, and I think then they would be able to pull it off. All right, I think I'm officially saved from the pass out monster. I still want removable modules. I agree. I think we need just a full breakdown of modules, but I think also we need to probably have like a few more modular um, a few more modular ships in the game before we get it. Because like I can imagine getting the Galaxy and then getting like a full explanation of modules, right? Or the Endeavor or something like that. Because I think one of the reasons we haven't got a full explanation of modules is because they don't know what they're going to do with the Endeavor yet, and I think they have to at least have the Endeavor planned out and the gameplay for it planned out before they can say this is the way modules will work. Even if they did a tier 0 version of it right now, which well, I'd say what we have now is tier 0 or tier 1. Um, so what they're doing now is kind of just like these are just placeholders because we have no idea how this system is going to finally like work in its finality. We have an idea of how it can work, but not how we haven't made the decision yet on like what modular gameplay is going to look like. Yeah, but I can't wait for the modularity to enter the game because I think it'll open up a lot of ships to other things that people haven't even thought of yet. Like, what if the Retaliator gets a medical module? Like that would be, you can see where things can go with modules, right? And of course the Carrack. I think most people who own a Carrack are like looking forward the most to modules. You have Caterpillar owners, and you have Carrack owners like right at that same level where they're like, we want our modules, and so I respect that. All right. I think the last question I asked was about the vehicles, right? Like, what vehicles did you want to see? But I didn't say what mine was. So, I kind of talked a little bit about. Here, we could put this up on the screen again too. Oh, that's not it. Where is it? This one. There we go. So, if you look here, let me zoom in for us here. All right. So these are all the kind of vehicles we have here. So we got anti-aircraft, APC, ground, touring, medical, freight, mining, personal transport, racing, recon, tank, touring, tractor, right? And then micro freight. You could say this one's electronic warfare. The Cyclone AA, there's another one that has an EMP, doesn't it? I think this one has an EMP as well. No, 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 that's the AA. There's another one though. The G something. The G12R, I think. Where's the G12R? Yeah, this one. I think this one has a EMP as well. So, what are we missing? We got anti-aircraft, ground tank, electric warfare, APC, micro-freight tractor, recon, medical, mining, touring, racing, personal transport. Here we can go to spacecraft and then look at all the things, right? How many of these things transfer over to vehicles, right? We don't have like an interdictor type of like landcraft, but you could say that like the fast hover vehicles are your interdictors when it comes to like combat from a vehicle, right? Electronic warfare, we could use more of those, right? We only have 2 out of the 30 vehicles. Boarding, I don't think makes sense for a vehicle. Drop ship, we have APC, right? That's the vehicle version of that. The mine layer, that's the one, I believe, who said that? Somebody said that over on YouTube about having a mine layer vehicle. That is a really great idea. You know, a vehicle that is sole purpose is to just drop mines, and it can either choose between dropping mines that are, you know, anti-personnel or anti-vehicle, or maybe it can do both, but maybe the anti-personnel ones are bigger, so you can only carry so many. You know, a mine vehicle, a mine layer vehicle, that would be really cool. That would definitely make people a lot more careful about where they step, right, and where they drive. That would also make, you know, like major areas of interest a little bit more interesting, because now you have to worry about like, I can't go, you know, I can't go in the air because they have anti-air, but I also, if I go on the ground, I have to take a specific route because they have anti-armor, you know. So I think that would be a really cool way to switch up the game a little bit. Medical, we already have. Recovery, I could see, you know, a tow truck. There's no reason why we can't have a tow truck, you know. I think that's perfectly reasonable. A salvaging vehicle, you could be a recovery and salvaging as a vehicle, you know. No reason. Like, we have to pick up the ships, right, that people leave everywhere. What do you think is going to happen with the vehicles that people leave everywhere? We need a version salvage vehicle that we can come up with. A refueling vehicle, that just makes sense. Let's see, what else? Stealth vehicle, I could imagine, you know, having, you know, a racing and stealth vehicle, right? That's like recon, but it's not recon in the way of like collecting data with the vehicle so much as it's about to, it's supposed to get you to where you need to go, and it can cloak you and the vehicle so that you're not seen for a temporary amount of time, and then get you out of there. So like, it's just whatever you hear or see. Carrier, I think, works more with the recovery and the like tow truck idea. You could have a variant that's not really a tow truck, but it like can carry another vehicle on its back. I just don't know why you would need to do that outside of recovery. So that's why I don't think we really need that. A shop on wheels, you could definitely do, working with commerce. A repair vehicle, I think that could be a variant of the recovery vehicle. Like, the recovery vehicle is just to transport it, whereas you could have a repair version where it can recover it and it can salvage it, whereas the repair version, maybe you can't take it with you, but you can go to it and repair it. We already got mining vehicles. Like I said, we need a salvaging vehicle. I can't really imagine a refining vehicle, but I can imagine like something being on there, right? Let's see. What's up? I just saw that we got raided by Benzium. What's up, folks? What's up, folks? What you're looking on the screen is thanks. Shout out to Benzium for the raid. Much appreciated. What you guys are looking at here is we are kind of trying to figure out what vehicles are still necessary for Star Citizen. So I think we've decided on Mine Layer. Well, I mean, I have. I can't say we. We decided on Mine Layer. We said there could be a recovery vehicle. There could be a repair vehicle. Yeah, Mine Layer. What else? And then I think we just got to the ability to do like maybe a science vehicle or something like that. So just talking about Star Citizen, just talking about everything. Drop questions in the chat. We're talking about everything. I think we only got like 10 minutes more of the stream, so drop your questions now so we can hear them out. If you're a lurker, it's all good. Just drop like 2 comments so that you can qualify for a prize. We give away prizes every month. So a science vehicle, I don't know what it would be, but I can imagine it being like having scanners and computers to like collect data, something like that. So it would work heavily with the scanning part. Yep, that one's fake. Yeah, construction. We kind of already have this right with the FM. That's not coming anytime soon for what we know. Yeah, and I think the rest of these are covered. So yeah, I think there's a lot of space left for vehicles. Deployable land crane, says Yeti. What's up? Oh yeah, I don't know if I said what's up to Pappy 1775, but what's up, Pappy? Haze 33, what's up? Welcome, Lenora. Welcome, Cody Fox. Oh, no, we already got Cody Fox. Cody Fox has been here. I was thinking about what you said about medical gameplay involving like cybernetic stuff, and I was just thinking another thing could be you have a hospital where you produce drugs that enhance people temporarily. That could be super profitable and bring people into the hospital consistently. Okay, I think what you're talking about is a thing, though. I think they've already said that they will have drugs that have like temporary buffs and long-term debuffs, right? So I think that is going to be a thing. I don't know. So I think there'll be obviously on the pirate side there'll be a version of it, and then on the pirate side there'll be a version, and then on the like legal side there'll be a version of it. So the pirate side would be temporary buffs and then long-term debuffs. On the medicine side, it would be you don't get as good of a buff as you would if you got the illegal drug thing, but then you don't get as long-term of a debuff either. So like they're giving you the medically acceptable amount to where it's A, not addictive, and B, it's not going to destroy your life, so to speak. So definitely like, and I think that would be like a sub career, right? So like medical. So if we talk like what we have up here, right? We have all of these things up here, right? Like support, right? Medical is under support, but the same way we could have medical up here, and then all of these things underneath could be, this is what we. No worries, Benzium. All good to lurk. So, yeah, I think we can have a medical tier and then things like subclasses of medical. We could definitely have subclasses of medical. We could have, one where you're like a pharmacist, and that would be the version of this that would be closest to like the lab person, right? And then we could also have a version of it where you're like a surgeon, and then one where you're maybe researching. We wouldn't be able to have like an optometrist, but like maybe a dentist. I don't know. But yeah, I just think you could kind of subclass it out that way. Yeah, I think you're right, Cody Fox. There's a lot of people that just think about it like med beds. I don't think a lot of people actually think about it like, what like the depth that medical can go to, right? And improving on, there's other things you can do, right? Like you can improve on, med pens. Maybe you can create better versions of med pens that heal more, or that are smaller, so that means you can carry more of them. So yeah, I can think of a lot of different ways that can go. All right, so we are getting close to the end of our stream, friends. We are getting close. So drop all the last questions that you have, and I will come back on the camera here. That's me for the people who stayed after the raid. Bars. Yeah, so this room behind me, this is welcome to the Phoenix. This is where we relax, and this is where we talk Star Citizen. But yeah, great conversation today. Like I said, I will be releasing more videos this week. Be prepared for some streams. I'm gonna try to stream every day. We'll see if that works, but I'll try to stream every day, trying to make up for lost time during this month. And we should have a video release every day starting tomorrow. So look out for that on YouTube. Don't forget, folks on Twitch, that you can subscribe if you have Amazon Prime. They give you a free Twitch subscription. So for folks who don't know that, you get a free Twitch subscription, and use that for any Twitch person that you want. But just understand that you can get that free subscription if you have a Prime membership. We hope you use it for us, but if you don't, hey, Benzium's here. Use it for Benzium. Use it for your friends. So as long as you use it, we just want everybody to use it. But yeah, I think really good. I think we're all looking forward to whether it's the Anvil Valhalla or the Anvil Asgard or both. I think we're all looking forward to that. I think we have some exciting stuff. Regardless of what we get, I think we're all excited for like all of the potential vehicles that could be released at Invictus. I think we're excited for pretty much all of them. And then after Invictus, what do we got? I think after Invictus, we get Alien Week. I think we're all hoping for some news on an alien ship, either the announcement of a new alien ship or some major news on some alien ships that we don't have yet. That would be great too. And then, yeah, I think then we go into the kind of slow months until we get to Ship Showdown in July, or mostly August. So, yeah. I would be shocked if we get any of those ships like the Paladin, the Perseus. If we get the Perseus, it's going to win Ship Showdown. So, just be prepared for that. Yeah. There's a lot of ships that I think, could win Ship Showdown this year, but it depends on what comes out before Ship Showdown. So we'll see. All right, let's find somebody to raid. Can't we find somebody to raid? If you're still here from Benzium, you're gonna do a double raid if you're still here. So that's cool. Let's see, what do we got? All right. Can you find somebody to raid? Okay, enough of my singing. You didn't come here for me to sing. I mean, there's some pretty good folks that sing on Twitch, that are not like professional, but they're really good. So, don't knock the fact that us Twitch folks can sing. All right. So we're gonna jump to Arc VR because Arc VR is on and they are actively playing Star Citizen. I like to jump you guys to people who are actually playing because I am not. So I don't want you guys to just go from like a person who just talked about Star Citizen to another person that's just talking about Star Citizen. Did I not do it right? Oh, I said Riyadh. Yeah, you got to spell it right. There we go. All right. So I don't see any like final questions here, but thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for joining the stream, especially folks who stayed for 2 hours. You guys are champs. Make sure you guys look out for the Atlas Geo video. That should be coming tomorrow. We'll also be trying to stream every day, trying to drop videos every day. So stay tuned. And again, thanks everybody. I will see you all later. Dun, dun, dun. Don't you want somebody to raid? Don't you need somebody to raid?
All right, here we at.